Hello, welcome back to Too Sweet MTG, and welcome to Instant Deck Techs. In this series, we go over everything you need to build a certain commander. We'll go over the strategies and the types of cards needed you need to get the deck working. Any cards we mention will be down in the description below. In this video, we're going to be looking at Ghazghkull, Prophet of the Warg, otherwise known as Zurgo Helmsmasher. It is 2 red, white and a black for a 7/2 legendary creature Orc Warrior. It has haste and it has to attack each combat if able. It also has indestructible as long as it's your turn. And finally, whenever a creature dealt damage by it dies this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on it. This is going to be a Voltron deck with the slightest of Orc subthemes. I would like to focus more on the Orc side of things, but there aren't just too many good ones out there for Commander as of yet. So the plan for this is to make the best deck that we can for this Commander, and that is a Voltron build. This means we're going to be suiting up Ghazghkull or Zurgo with all manner of really busted equipment so that we can get it into the red zone for the most amount of damage possible, what a true Orc would really want. The first section for us to go over is our Equipment Matters section. Our Commander already hits for a lot of damage, these help us take it to the next level. First up is the actual equipment itself. There is a ton of cool effects out there to suit people's budgets, but we're looking for a couple of important things here. You have cards like Blackblade Reforged and Two-Handed Axe, which can seriously pump up our commander's power so we can get in for that all-important 21 point of commander damage win all the quicker. The other way of doing that is by giving our commander double strike. This also has the added benefit of making blocking so much worse for our opponents, while also making taking them out of the game twice as quick. This also makes the commander much better at blocking as well, if we're ever in a case where we can't get through damage. Cards like Lizardblade, Fireshrieker, and especially Embercleave are great examples of this. Then we have equipment that buffs up its power, while also giving it trample. Getting evasion onto Ghazghkull or Zurgo is exactly what we want, as it means we're more likely to get that lovely damage through. Forebear's Blade, also giving it vigilance, will mean it'll be as good on defense as it is on attack, and the added lifelink of Loxodon Warhammer will have us gaining a ton of life in no time. The other option here is to give it flying, with something like Maul of the Skyclaves, pumping up our commander's stats and making sure that he can get that damage through. After the equipment itself, we then have cards that give us discounts on the equip costs of the equipment. These are basically pseudo ramp in the deck, as once one of these is down, we can spend the mana we would normally be using to equip our equipment on just casting another bit, meaning we can get down to the business of attacking with more power. You then have your equipment tutors. These are great at getting that key bit of equipment that you need. You can go and get one of the bits we've already gone through when you're ready to start pushing that damage through, or you can go and get some of the bits that will help us ramp ahead or draw us some cards. Then we have a nice little enchantment to mention that does a little bit of everything, in Fighter class. When it comes in, it's a tutor. Then if we have the mana, we can level it up to make our equip costs be a little bit cheaper. Level 3 is probably one you won't need anywhere near as much, but there will be situations where it can be backbreaking for certain opponents, especially ones with decks that rely on their puny commanders. Moving over to our ramp, we have some bits that work with the equipment theme before we move on to some more standard fare. First up, we have Sword of the Animist and the Reaver Cleaver. We're going to want to be attacking a lot with our commander in this deck, so getting a land with Sword of the Animist or some treasure with the Reaver Cleaver will be really nice, and great at setting us up for the next couple of turns. Then we have cards like Wayfarer's Bauble and Solemn Simulacrum, which are really nice and easy to cast, and can go and get us a basic land out of our deck, ready to ramp us ahead. And then, as we're a commander deck not running green, a solid base of mana rocks will be essential. Starting at Sol Ring and Arcane Signet, you can then look to running a combination of the 3 signets and talismans that we have in these colours. Moving over to our card draw, and we have a nice couple of options available to us. First up is cards that care about equipment. You have Sram, Senior Edificer, which draws us a card whenever we play a bit of equipment. Absolutely perfect for this deck. You then have Armoured Skyhunter, which is an invasive cat knight that when it attacks, lets us dig 6 cards into our deck for a bit of equipment, and then put it onto a creature for free. A very solid card. We then have Mark of Grizzlebrand. The flying and lifelink buff will be really nice for our commander, but the ability to cash it in if it ever gets removed for a bucket load of cards will be fantastic, and exactly what we need to rebuild after a board wipe. Then we have some Orcsies. Plague, Dean of Chaos, is a nice little rummager that also lets us sink mana into it to flip a spell off the top of our library. A pretty solid mana sink if we run out of gas. Then we have Ruin Raider, which if we've attacked, and let's be honest, we're going to be doing that in this deck, we draw a card and lose life equal to that card's mana cost. You know, greatness at any cost and all that. Then we have Blood for the Blood God. When you see the amount of board wipes this deck will be packing, you'll quickly see how cheap this will be to cast. This is fantastic at refilling our hand so we can go again. For some more safe and steady bits of card draw, you have the already in need of a reprint Black Market Connections and Old Faithful itself, Phyrexian Arena. Absolutely fantastic at drawing us cards turn after turn. For some more budget-friendly options, you can look at running some instants and sorceries, with cards like Faithless Looting, Signing Blood, Read the Bones, and Painful Truths. Our interaction section will be a little bit bigger than regular decks, for reasons that we'll get onto in a moment. But starting off, we have some more good Orc cards, with Merciless Executioner, great at removing other Voltron commanders out there, and then we have Sky Sovereign Console Flagship, which is just a really solid vehicle that can throw around some damage. We then have a card like Brutal Horde Chief, which is another good orc that'll drain out our opponents whenever we attack with the boys. Its activated ability, however, is basically repeatable removal when we're chonking in with a 7/2 indestructible every combat. Next up is some of the best bits of instant speed removal in all of Magic. You have efficient creature removal with Path to Exile and Sword to Plowshares, and then cards like D-Spark and Anguished Unmaking can answer anything scary on the board. Our board wipe section is where things get a little bit more spicy. Remember that on our turn, our commander will have Indestructible. That means you could very easily, first main phase, just wipe the board. Our commander will be the only thing to survive, and then we're all but guaranteed to get its damage through, as there will be no creatures left to stop it. This could be a really scary strategy. You could in theory just do this every turn until your opponents are dead. To make this work, it does mean packing more board wipes than you would do normally, but it's something I think could be really worth it. If you really want to make sure the game is ending, you also have a card like World Slayer. If we connect with this, we'll blow up absolutely everything, including lands. We'll still be left with our commander with this attached, and we'll have the ability to do it all over again. Because of all of that, our commander will be painting a bit of a target onto its head. As such, protection will be essential. First up, we have Swiftfoot Boots. Giving the commander hexproof will obviously be great, so it can't be the target of any removal spells. We then have some creatures that can protect it as well. Mother of Runes is fantastically annoying for any of our opponents to play around, as we can give our commander protection from any removal spell that they cast. And then also at a push, we can use it to get around blockers. Selfless Samurai will also be great in this deck, as we can sacrifice it to give our commander indestructible on our opponent's turns, making it much more likely to survive. The added lifelink buff will also be really nice and really good at keeping us alive. We then have Gift of Immortality, a really good way of making our commander come back again and again if it ever gets removed on any of our opponent's turns. And then finally we have Boros Charm. Giving all of our permanents indestructible will be great to dodge either ours or our opponent's wrath effects, while also coming with the ability to give our commander double strike at instant speed, which could really catch out an opponent and let us win the game. Talking of us winning the game, let's go over some dedicated win conditions. First up, we have some more equipment, but these ones are here purely to make the commander unblockable. Prowler's Helm, Trailblazer's Boots, and Whispersilk Cloak all but guarantee that we can get that 21 points of commander damage through that we need to take out a player. We then have some cards that let us have extra combat steps. The more combat steps we have, the quicker we'll win the game. You have a card like Ryu, Storm's Edge, which works as our commander is importantly an Orc warrior. You have Aggravated Assault, which lets us just pump mana into it to get extra combat steps, and also goes infinite with a card like the Reaver Cleaver that we mentioned earlier. Port Razor is another good Orc boy, and it and Aurelia just do a great job at giving us more opportunities to attack. On top of those, we can look to run some damage doublers. Kedis is a great little creature for this kind of thing. Then, a card like Gratuitous Violence seems perfect, and right at home in an Orc deck like this. I'm not sure thematically how Gisela Blade of Gold Knight fits into the deck, but its ability has ended many a game of Commander in the past, and in this deck it will continue to do so. Then lastly, we have Brash Taunter, which could be a lot of fun. With this, we can pay mana to have it fight our commander. If we do this on our turn, it'll have Indestructible, so won't ever die. While we're doing this, it'll keep dealing damage to our opponents equal to its power. This is a great way of getting damage through if for whatever reason you're unable to attack an opponent directly. Rounding off the deck with some utility lands, as we're a 3-colour deck we can't run too many, but the ones we can will be nice and impactful. First up we have the ones that tap for colourless mana, with Command Beacon being great in any deck that revolves around having the commander in play. Then Rogue's Passage is great redundancy for some additional evasion, so we can get our commander through. Then Slayer's Stronghold and Sunhome Fortress of the Legion are great repeatable ways of buffing up the damage that the commander will be doing. For some lands that tap for coloured mana, we first have Axguard Armory, a nice little backup equipment tutor on a land that's basically free to run. You then obviously have Bojuka Bog, which is great at answering any graveyard decks at the table. Shizo Death's Storehouse is not as reliable as Rogue's Passage, but it's still pretty solid when it comes up. Then we have Spinerock Knoll, which lets us cheat something into play, and will be really easy for us to activate in this deck. The rest of your mana base will be very dependent on what you have available to you. We recently released a video with some advice on building a deck with a budget mana base, which might be of help. Until next time, please like, share and subscribe, and let us know down in the comments if there are any commanders you'd like to see a deck tech on. Thank you very much for watching.